I think you just gave me the green light, so I'll be working on your GA4 stuff probably this afternoon, actually.
But amazing. So, okay, you mentioned two pieces, right? Having the technical know-how, but maybe more importantly, having the awareness and just knowing kind of what the possibilities are or what you're missing out on. So something that we hear a lot in the donor participation project is, okay, this all sounds great. Don't tell me about big shop, big nonprofit issues. What about the two-person nonprofit? Is web data, is engagement, online engagement data, still helpful for really small teams like this?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the digital strategy that the nonprofit is using. So if you're nonprofit and your customer journey is not reliant upon your website at all, it's less important. That being said, there are digital dashboards that you can make to encompass other areas of your marketing. So one thing that I've seen that is just so sad is poor nonprofit founders or communications team scrolling through all of their different social media every month and compiling an Excel spreadsheet of all of their metrics and then analyzing that data like a month or two after the data is already there. And then they just collect the data and they don't even know what to do with it.
Yeah, well, probably there's a fire to put out somewhere else by the time you get all that done.
Exactly. So collecting the data is good, but if you're not actually doing anything with it, it's pretty... most people don't really do anything with it. Depending on what your strategy is, there are different sort of methods you can look. But here's some benefits, I guess, that you might want to look for. One is real-time reporting of all of your social media metrics, all of your email metrics, and all of your website metrics in one place. You can build a custom dashboard. You can see everything in one dashboard or display. Wow. And then you can see how they interact. The other thing is attribution. So let's say you have a website with a donation form or even a pledge form, right? Something that might be a precursor to a donation. Let's just say you have that. You can see where everybody is coming from to get to that form. So 50% of the people are coming from email. You know your email is doing well. Maybe 10% of people on the page come from a social media campaign, but 100% of the people that came from the social media campaign convert. So you know that the social media campaign performs well, but you actually don't get a lot of traffic from your social media. This can sort of help you diagnose what's working, what's disproportionately working, and where you should invest future marketing efforts into. There are other really big integrations with data. So right now, AI is the buzzwords on everybody's mind. Google Analytics is a platform that lets you store mostly anonymized data about web users. And the data can then be taken from Google Analytics and put into an ad platform like, let's say, Google Ads, which trains massive AI models to help replicate the digital identification and match that to like audiences for future remarketing, as well as you can just retarget that person. Last time I was on and talked a lot about retargeting, but you're able to retarget that user. It's just so incredibly important in my view for the long-term future to capture this type of data,
or at least start thinking about this. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned something really interesting, which is pulling in outside sources of data into your dashboard. Obviously, most nonprofits have a CRM.
Yes.
And there's really good data in there. How could you pull that? How can that help inform this decision making?
So you can create dashboards. There's a tool that Google has called Looker Studio.
Okay.
And what that lets you do is combine a ton of different data sources and
Okay.
then use basically Excel functions
Mm-hmm.
to add data sources together and then
Mm-hmm.
perform calculations on them. So you might, from there, you might be able to create interesting metrics. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of this, it's better if a lot of this goes through the website because then it's easier to draw a straight path.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is say, if somebody's coming through my website and they fill out a donation form for $10, I now see that 10% of the people that come from social media fill out the donation form for $10, and then I see them in my CRM. And then when you go later next year and then you update the CRM to say, oh, now they just gave a second gift of $20, well, that information can be relayed back into the dashboard. And now you see, like, instead of the lifetime value of that initial acquisition from that first channel being,
Mm-hmm.
$10, now it's $20. And you can sort of bridge the gap and see the whole story instead of
Exactly.
just at the end. The CRM really only gives you information once the donor's in the door, but prior to that, there's a whole digital journey that you're not accounting for. And there's something to say about just do everything you can to make the donor experience great and communicate in a way that feels natural. But there is something to be said about really looking at these analytics and
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand what is working best. And there are legitimate metrics, page engagement, page views, touch points, all of these things, which are proxies to um, uh,
Yeah.
donor engagement. Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. This is great. Why is Google doing this? I mean, was it not working before? Was Universal Analytics not working?
So there are some legitimate technical upgrades that came in. The
Okay.
actual really big one that I believe is the main one is privacy.
Okay.
So Google Analytics or Universal Analytics was not GDPR compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was a big issue because it was sort of the gold standard. And the way GDPR laws work is that even if you get a single user from a European country, you need your data capture to be compliant with that, with
Mm-hmm.
those specific laws. That includes correct data capture as well as correct data storage and transfer. So you're not allowed to transfer it to like international servers or anything.
Okay.
And old Google Analytics wasn't compliant with that. Now, the new Google Analytics is still a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a gray area, but it's a lot better than it was before. Just while we're on GDPR stuff,
Yeah.
there's sort of like conspiracy theories where current like other Western countries are probably going to adopt similar laws in the next
Okay.
couple of years. PIPEDA here in Canada is getting dangerously close to following suit. I don't know actually the name of the American privacy laws. If they have a special name. I'm sure they won't be too far behind. So
Mm-hmm.
getting your data captured to be compliant with those laws is also something to be wary of and
Mm-hmm.
to prepare for. And that's harder to do than you would think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of detail there. Once you pretty large rabbit hole. Okay, so we'll go, so Universal Analytics essentially is going to stop working July 1. People are okay, so people are getting notices. I mean, and I know because I
Yeah.
have a website and I get those notices. What is like the default? Like, if you don't do anything, will it just stop working? And then is like, do you have to change a code or something? Like, what is like the minimum viable activity, and what will that mean? How will that be different from Universal Analytics?
Yeah, great question. So they will replace your Universal Analytics property with a Google Analytics for property. So they'll upgrade you themselves, but any custom integration, any custom setup will be lost. So if you've ever had a developer firm or a marketing firm come in and make custom adjustments to your analytics or tracking or Google Tag Manager or anything like that, everything is about to break. And the truth is the benefit comes from the custom setup. So out of the box, Google Analytics can track stuff like page views, engagement time, sometimes form completions.
Okay.
But that data is usually somewhat inaccurate. The most important parts are inaccurate. And any custom tracking, so things like money, so donations, things like specific page or form signups, program signups, that is non-existent, and you're not tracking the data you need for future advertising as well.
Okay. So like we talked a lot about how there's
Yeah.
tremendous value in starting to feed those remarketing audiences, right?
Yeah. The other thing, and I don't know how applicable this is to your audience, Lewis, but is the ad grant stuff.
Okay.
So I'll give the pitch here. Every registered nonprofit, pretty well, is eligible for $10,000 per month in free Google ad spend to spend on search ads.
Okay.
One of the important components with that is having accurate conversion tracking. And because conversion tracking acts as a proxy metric for interest and engagement that Google looks at. So when you're advertising something, Google wants to make sure, especially if they're giving you free money to advertise with, that you're not wasting all of your spend, right? That you're not advertising like on shoes or something, right? If you're nonprofit for I don't know, feeding children, you don't want to advertise on Nike shoes. That would be a disaster for them. Google doesn't want that. So they require you to show that people are engaging on your website in a positive way. And most of the time that is page engagement, or that's donations, or that's signups or something. And conversion tracking is how you do that. I'm curious, Lewis, about your audience. What would you say like the demographic makeup, what like the titles and stuff are of most people in the DPP?
Well, I wish we could ask today, but apparently Mike Brusek informed me that the LinkedIn Live stream is broken. So I put the I put the link to Facebook there for everybody, and we'll restream this at some time. David, we'll rebroadcast this to LinkedIn.
Sounds good.
But I would say that it's all over the board, really. So we started the DPP started with a focus on higher ed and more like mass fundraising positions, kind of the role that I was in at the time. But it's really grown to include both VPs all the way down to like entry-level positions, and lots of different types of nonprofits. So for the Google ads, I don't know if higher ed and if academic and healthcare are eligible, but we have, whether they are, they not. But
those are all categories that aren't. You just named the three that aren't eligible at all.
Exactly. So, but we have a ton of other organizations that that could benefit. Yesterday, there was somebody who signed up to the group, Parkinson's, I think it's research or advocacy organization. This person is the sole development officer for not one shop, but two different nonprofits. Wow. And I answered, how do you do this? So anyhow, Google ads, would be fantastic for people like that. David, tell us more about that. So you do, the way we've ended up here is because to actually ask for the Google ads, you're going to need to have Google Analytics 4 and be tracking some of these things. What's the Google Ad Grants program?
Yeah, so it's Google felt bad about taking a ton of money from small nonprofits that are trying to advertise with them. So they decided that they would just give them a ton of free money or basically credit to advertise with, which is very nice on their part. Microsoft also has a similar program. So I've had such a privilege of working with a lot of different types of nonprofits, and I'd say at like an early stage of development, nonprofits usually try and do a couple different things with their marketing. I think the first and easiest one is social media. It's sort of everybody's first stab at like creating communications, like outbound communications.
Yeah.
The other
Barrier
one,
super low. You just
yeah,
go on there. You support it.
barrier super low. Everybody sort of has personal experience with it, and you can create content that resonates really well with an audience. And there's always that like moonshot chance of something going viral, especially when you're creating like content around a cause, though it is rare. The second thing that people do is blogging. So a lot of nonprofits go into blogging, creating written content. That seems to be what does very, very well with the Google Ad Grant. So if they're nonprofits that have a lot of text content, specifically educational text-based content, what you're able to do is use the ad grant as gasoline to bring that content to the top of the search page on Google. And most people don't have a very good grasp of search engine optimization. It's a tricky thing to figure out. Takes a lot of time and investment and dedication to really hammer out a really good SEO plan. But just running Google search ads basically circumvents the need for search engine optimization in the short term. It's not a permanent solution, but it can
let me dig into this, David. So what you're saying is that actually what works better if you get a Google Ads grant is to promote your content rather than your donation page. That's maybe unintuitive for some people.
Yeah, so that goes into the customer journey. If you're promoting your donation page to someone that's never heard of your nonprofit before, your likelihood of a donation is probably pretty close to zero. Especially if you're working on text-based content. So if you just run a search ad for "donate to us now," like nobody's gonna click that. That'd be ridiculous, right? You'd have a better chance like going into the middle of the street in July dressed as Santa with a pot for donations. It would work better. But if you're able to create content around a specific topic, and then within that content have appeals for donations or a direct call to action for a sign up or a pledge, that tends to work quite a bit better. And even if you're not in the initial touch point able to convert people into a donation, you're usually able to acquire an email that you can use for future correspondence, and really get somebody into your funnel and have future communications with them. And if you have an existing content strategy based around blogs and text-based content, that's already what your objectives should be. And Google Ads grants just accelerate that.
This makes, I mean, a ton of sense. Also, kind of just the way human beings work. Exactly. The Santa Claus in July, or you don't ask for marriage on the first date, things like that.
That's right.
But what about, is there an exception for the types of nonprofits, like I'm thinking churches, that have a congregation, universities that have an alumni base? And those alumni, there's very strong brand recognition already with those groups, right? Could Google Ads be an opportunity to retarget or remarket or whatever that is?
Yeah, so that's one thing that is very cool about the thing that is really cool about Google Analytics is the ability to retarget. Now, the Google Ad Grant doesn't allow you to retarget with text or with display advertising. So
Okay.
basically, you're not able to do any effective retargeting, but you
Okay.
are able to create audiences, which you can then retarget with paid ad accounts. So you're not allowed to retarget with the free money. You can do that with the real
Okay.
money.
So this is, I mean, and this is why kind of maybe you go to speak with David or Regroup Media, somebody at your firm, to understand the nuances here, because it's not as clear cut, but it makes sense when you explain it.
Yeah. So I mean, we can just imagine, like in your world, Lewis, you have the concept of a funnel, right? That's like normal fundraiser vocabulary, right?
Yeah, I think most people will be familiar. Yep.
Okay, so at the top, you might imagine that you have 10,000 people that come in, viewing your article or viewing your ad. These people have never heard of you before in their life. Maybe they're interested in the thing they clicked on. Maybe they didn't even read it and they just clicked because they wanted to waste your ad money, right? 10,000 people come in at the top of the funnel. 50% of them leave, but 50% of them click to sign up to your newsletter. Assuming there's a pretty compelling reason to sign up to the newsletter. Even if they don't go further, even if they just sign up to the newsletter and don't decide to donate, you just created an audience of people who are way more likely to be interested in your product. So now you can retarget to those hyper select group of people that are a warm audience, basically.
Okay.
Instead of retargeting the sort of the top of funnel, which is going to be very expensive, most of which probably aren't interested in your nonprofit, retargeting to the people who signed up to the email list will get you a lot better results. And if you're using, let's say, an ad grant, which gets you basically infinite free top of funnel traffic, and then that's funneling into the email list, now you have a steady flow, a steady lead flow, which then you can retarget against. And ideally, you can be profitable with the remarketing to that warmer audience. Those basic types of remarketing funnels are more or less the bread and butter of these types of content strategies, and something that's worth doing for anybody whose organization is set up that way. There's a million different ways you can set up an organization, so it's hard to give like a one size fits all idea, but like this is one tactic, tacticy strategy that has worked for people.
Well, it's exactly. So like every nonprofit will have its own fundraising model, and in some types of nonprofits that maybe are more, have a very emotional, that have emotional appeal. This and also have a very wide potential range of donors, right? So like, anybody could give to a hunger organization. Whereas maybe cancer research is more targeted. But even then, right, there's enough numbers out there. Fascinating. This is absolutely great. So we're inviting everybody to start looking into Google Analytics 4. How can people get in touch with you, David, if they have questions about the nitty-gritty of all of this?
So you can find me on LinkedIn at David Lisowsky, or you can reach me by email at david@regroupmedia.ca, or visit my website at regroupmedia.ca. I'd be happy to chat.
Awesome. Let me put that on the screen. And we are going to call this a day. As always, David, I found this incredibly informative, and actually so much that we brought you on to try to help us out with some of this in the donor participation project. So we're thrilled to be able to continue to learn and take advantage of all your knowledge.
Thanks for having me on, Lewis, and hopefully people can take away just one thing and realize that there is a deadline coming up July 1st, so they won't be panicking on the day of, which that would not be a good thing.
Or after the fact, right?
Or after the fact,
after the end of the calendar year, when you actually do need it. We talked about this a little bit last time too, right? The right time to think about retargeting, remarketing is at least 6 months to a year in advance, no?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, any sort of any sort of analytics, you want to collect data for a substantial part of time. You don't want to make huge judgments that can affect the direction of your organization on a week of data. I don't think that works well for anybody.
Makes sense. Great. Thank you, David. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.